Good morning, friend. Welcome back to my kitchen. Today is the day of the raspberries. This is just part of the raspberries we're going to be processing today. The farmer that I used to be a member of their CSA, Community Supported Agriculture, texted me over the weekend and let me know that he had a bumper crop of raspberries and asked if I wanted any, and I said yes. And they are grown organically. He's not a certified organic gardener because it's expensive to go through that process, but he grows all of his produce using organic methods. So I've got 1, 2 and a half plus another 3 half flats. So that's a total of 4 flats, I think. Yes, of organic, locally grown, beautiful raspberries. Now, the one thing about these raspberry flats is they're actually half. So each one of these 6 containers that's in here, instead of it being in a full pint, it is a half pint. So these are smaller than when I think of a traditional flat. Usually there is 12 pints, and these are 12 half pints of raspberries. I have a total of 6 different projects I want to make with these raspberries. We're gonna make these delicious looking cream cheese raspberry brownies. This is from my Freeze Fresh cookbook. I know a lot of you guys have this cookbook, and when I opened up to the raspberry section, I saw this and had to make it. There's also this recipe that looked good, and then directions on how to freeze raspberries. So what we're gonna do today is we're gonna make the brownies first. We're gonna make a raspberry infused vodka. We're gonna make jam. We're gonna make a raspberry curd. And we're gonna freeze some, freeze dry some, and just do a bunch of things with these absolutely beautiful organic raspberries. I only wrote this list, even though some of the things are pretty obvious, because I know that I might forget some if I don't actually write it down. So the first thing I wanna start with are the brownies, because those can be baking while we're doing some of the other projects. I gotta open it back up to the brownie page. Let's see, here we go. Okay, so we need to preheat. I'll link this cookbook down below. I need to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. The last time we were in the kitchen, we made strawberry jam and did some other fun projects, and I have not even put those away yet. So that is just evidence that it is harvest season. So I asked Josh, do you want canned raspberry jam or do you want freezer jam? Because I started making freezer jam for him this year, and he requested that we make freezer jam. So I've got my freezer jam containers ready here with the containers that we're gonna freeze our lemon curd in, or I'm saying lemon curd, our raspberry curd in. And I set out some butter and cream cheese to soften so that we can make the brownies first thing this morning. I don't think I'm actually going to use the salad spinner portion of this because it's damaging the berries too much. They're getting too smashed. And so I am just going to rinse them really well and inspect every raspberry for anything on there that I don't want on there. If I was making jam out of all this or sauce or something like that, I wouldn't mind if they got crushed. But because I want to freeze dry and freeze some of them, I really don't want those ones being crushed. The freeze-dried ones I'm thinking we're gonna use in homemade granola and powder some and turn it into red raspberry powder so that I can make a bunch of baked goods at Christmas time and around Valentine's Day. And we can turn them red using freeze-dried raspberry powder. So this one is not good, so I'm gonna go ahead and pull that out, and we'll give the not good ones to the chickens. So far, I've only seen one that's not good. So I'm just picking out any ones that are crushed, and they're still good, they're not bad. I'm just gonna use those in either the jam or the brownies. The whole ones we're gonna leave nice and whole for different uses. So I've kind of got a little bowl going here of the ones that are crushed. So I found that the best way to get the most water out of this is to pound it. They are all washed, and now we can turn them into things we can enjoy all year. I was gonna recycle these boxes, but I think I'm gonna keep them because I think that they would be really convenient when harvesting tomatoes and peppers and green beans out of the garden, because I can stack them really well. So I'm really excited about these boxes when I'm harvesting things out of my garden. Here is our bowl of kind of crushed berries, which is perfect because we need crushed berries for the raspberry swirl portion of the brownies. Now she calls for frozen raspberries because the assumption is that you freeze all your raspberries and then you can use them in this recipe throughout the rest of the year. But since I have fresh, I'm just gonna use fresh, and that's gonna be just fine. So to this saucepan, I'm gonna add a 1/2 cup of sugar and 1.5 cups of raspberries. That's a half. That's another half. Now I'm just gonna go ahead and fill the rest of this with raspberries that we've washed. We'll call that good. Now I'm gonna let this cook, and while this is cooking, we're gonna make the cream cheese portion. So in the stand mixer, I'm gonna mix cream cheese, butter, sugar, all-purpose flour, and a splash of vanilla with 1 large egg. And I'm gonna mix that until smooth. That looks perfect. So I'm gonna need this mixer to make the brownie portion of this brownie. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this out of here. Now into the mixer, I'm gonna add sugar. And eggs. And we're gonna mix this for 3 minutes. So that has been mixing together for quite some time. So now we're gonna add our melted chocolate and butter. It smells incredible in here. Vanilla. Now we're gonna add the dry ingredients. Flour, baking powder, or not baking powder, cocoa powder. This is gonna be the baking powder. And then we have one more ingredient, salt. So we're gonna mix this together, and then we can combine our 3 components together. Our jam is done as well. I want this to cool a little bit before we combine our 3 components together. So now we can put all of our components together. We have a piece of parchment paper I'm gonna put at the bottom of this baking dish. This is a 9 by 9. So now the fun part, we get to start adding in our jam and our cheesecake mixture. I've had this jam mixture that we made up in the fridge cooling, and you can see how much thicker it is now. I can just use the same scoop. So I have a chopstick. One thing to note with this recipe is that Crystal recommends that you use a metal squared off baking dish, a 9x9. I don't own one of those, and so I'm just using a glass one. But I did taste that batter with a little bit of the cheesecake, the jam portion, and the chocolate batter. These are gonna be good as long as I can bake them properly and I don't burn them. So they need to bake for 45 minutes. And so what should we do next? Let's go ahead and get going on the jam. I'm gonna use a low sugar pectin to make the jam. And the directions used to be in this box of pectin. They are no longer in the box of pectin. This was, not this one, but one of the boxes over there was one that I had from last year. And they had this insert where they gave you directions on jellies, a cooked jam to can to be shelf stable, and a frozen freezer jam. But now the boxes come with a QR code. So if you're wondering, how do I find the directions if I want to use this pectin? You scan this QR code with your phone. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the quick and easy freezer jam, and we're gonna do the red raspberry. We need 4 cups of crushed berries and 3.5 cups of sugar. So I've got a measuring spoon, and you know what I think I'm gonna do first? I think I'm gonna pick out some of the nicest berries, and I'm gonna go ahead and get these in the freeze dryer because I don't wanna take the really nice, beautiful, pristine raspberries and crush them up. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cooling the freeze dryer because that takes about 15 minutes. So I just grabbed my freeze dryer trays. I think what I could also do with these freeze dried raspberries is we could decorate cakes with them, if the ones that are in this nice pristine whole form. So I'm just gonna start laying the really nice firm ones on here. If you're interested in which freeze dryer I have, I can link it down below. I've had it for 3 years now, and I use it almost continuously during this time of year. If you don't have a good resource for local berries, a great resource is Azure Standard. I can link Azure down below. They are sponsoring today's video. I actually have an order in that I'm gonna be picking up in 4 days, a couple boxes of organic diced or whole frozen fruit. And I'm gonna be freeze drying that for my nephews. They're gonna be in town next week, and for their birthdays and Christmas every year, they request me to freeze dry fruit for them. And a way to save time is to buy it pre-frozen, pre-sliced, pre-washed, pre-diced. And so that's what I'm gonna do for them this coming week. And all the sugars, all the flour I just used for that, the cocoa powder, the chocolate chips, I buy also a lot of my baked goods from Azure Standard. They specialize in organics. They have non-organic and organic, but they have a lot of organic goods at a great price. And so that is where I buy the majority of all my baked goods. And I will link them down below if you're interested in learning more about Azure. One thing I love about freeze-dried fruit is it's not as messy as fresh fruit. At least in my experience, that's what I've noticed. It can get powdery on you, especially the red varieties, but things like freeze-dried mangoes, freeze-dried whole strawberries, freeze-dried sliced apples and pears and peaches are a nice, delicious snack that I have found are less messy because they're not juicy like a fresh piece of fruit. And I am completely out of freeze-dried fruit right now because I can't keep it in my house. That's why I have a really big order of fruit coming, of diced fruit, so that I can go ahead and run quite a few freeze dryer loads for my family and for my nephews when they get into town. Here are the berries ready for the freeze dryer. I could throw these in the freezer and then freeze dry them, but I'm just gonna go ahead and freeze dry them from fresh. Into the stainless steel pot, I'm gonna measure out 3.5 cups of sugar. And I get questions a lot about why my sugar is not bright white. This is organic cane sugar that I get at Azure Standard, and it is not bleached, and so it still has some color to it. It's absolutely beautiful, and it is my favorite sugar. So I've got 3 cups there. I need an additional 1/2 cup. This is 1/4 of a cup, so I'm gonna add 2 of those. I'm gonna add 1 package of pectin. I'm gonna mix that together. And now I'm gonna add 1 cup of water. And we're gonna get this to a boil. One thing about jams and jellies is you cannot mess up the sugar pectin to fruit ratio. The packaging or the recipe is designed to set with that ratio. So even though 3.5 cups of sugar seems like a lot of sugar, it's actually less sugar, this recipe, than a traditional jam. This does come with a no sugar needed jam that has, I think it is, let's see, Splenda. So you could use that if you want. There's also another brand of pectin called Pomona's pectin, which I can link down below for you. I have used it, and the cool thing about it is you can pick how much sugar you want. It uses a different setting agent than pectin. And so you could use as low, I think, as like 1/2 cup or 1/4 cup of sugar. And you can use honey and different sweeteners if you want. Let's see, so we need 4 cups of crushed berries, 3 cups or 6 cups of whole berries. So I'm gonna start measuring these out into my bowl that I'm gonna crush them in. Then I'm gonna get my towels into the wash by themselves, and hopefully I didn't stain them. Probably did. They might become my harvest towels. That's okay. That's 2, 5, 6. I'm gonna crush these berries. And I'm gonna take half of this fruit, this is an optional step, and I'm gonna strain it through this sieve to remove quite a bit of these seeds. You can leave all these seeds in if you want, but I think my family would prefer a little less seedy. So I have 2 bowls. This has no seeds in it. Whoop, nope, darn. This one has some seeds in it, and this is just gonna go to the chickens. They are gonna have a heyday with this. And now I need to make sure I have 4.5 cups, I think. Nope, just 4 cups between the 2 here, and I think I do. Today we're making freezer jam, and what the difference between a freezer jam and a cooked canned jam is two things. One, this is not shelf stable. We are going to put it into our containers when we're done, and we'll throw it into the freezer, hence why it's called a freezer jam. This right here was canned, so after we made the jam, we put it in jars, we put a lid on it, we water bath canned it, and this is shelf stable. This is strawberry jam I made, and I've already made freezer strawberry jam. Now the other big difference, and this is where the flavor difference comes in, is freezer jam, the fruit is not cooked. It generally has the same sugar to fruit ratio if you use this low sugar pectin that I like. And we are gonna boil the sugar, water, and pectin together. Once this comes to a rolling boil that I can't stir the bubbles away, we're then gonna take this and pour it into our fruit, and that is our jam right there. We'll stir it together, and we are done with our jam, and then we'll put it into our containers. Versus cooked, shelf-stable, water bath canned jam is you cook the fruit with the pectin on the stove until the fruit comes to a rolling boil, and that can take 10 minutes or so. And then you add the sugar, and then you boil that until it comes to a rolling boil. That can take 10 minutes or so. Then you jar it and you water bath can it, and then it's shelf stable. So the flavor can be different even though it's the same ingredients, because you're not actually cooking the fruit. So it has a much fresher flavor. So this is now at a rolling boil. So I'm gonna go ahead and set my timer for 1 minute exactly, and we're gonna let this boil. Now there's some pros and cons to both the freezer jam and the cooked shelf stable jam. The freezer jam is obviously frozen, so when you want to use it, you have to thaw it first. So there is a convenience of having the shelf stable jam, hence why I made both freezer strawberry jam and canned jam. The flavor, we are kind of enjoying a little bit more because it's a little bit fresher, more summer brightness because it's not cooked from the frozen jam. But there's something so nice about having your jam thawed, ready to go. You pop the lid open and it's ready to go. And you can gift a jarred jam a lot easier than you can gift a freezer jam. And I gift a lot of jam and things away. So that's kind of one of the benefits of a canned and cooked jam. So it's changed colors quite a bit. It's quite a bit darker now. I'm gonna turn the stove off, and now I'm gonna measure out 4 cups of fruit that we prepared earlier. Hopefully I have enough, I should. I'm gonna go ahead and put all that in there. So our stove is off. All I need to do is thoroughly combine that sugar, pectin, and fruit together, and then our jam is done. I believe our brownies are done just in time to be done. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be incredible. There's just a slight jiggle. I think because there's so much cheesecake layer, that'll be okay, and it will set as it cools. The raspberries are in the freeze dryer, so we're gonna get that started. So one more project done. All right, so we've got this done, this done, this done. Let's go ahead and do this because this is only gonna take a minute. So I've got a mason jar here. This is a 1/2 gallon mason jar, and I'm gonna fill it with a good 2 cups, maybe 3 cups of raspberries. So I thought I had more vodka than this because I don't get into that cupboard very often. So I put some of the more berries out on the counter over there, and I'm just gonna use what I have. And this is just gonna sit. I'm gonna have to go to the store probably and get another bottle this afternoon at some point. And I'm just gonna put a lid on this. Yeah, because the berries aren't even covered. Get these berries nice and covered. So this is not quite enough to cover this jar. So I'm just gonna set this here for now, but either today, today, because I need propane, I'm gonna run to the store to make dinner. And so I'll get another jar and I'll probably put another about half, maybe 2 inches on top of that. And I will let that sit for about 4 weeks, strain it, and then I can use it however I want. I'm getting inspired by, there's a distillery in Sisters, Oregon, I believe it's called Roots, and they infuse the most incredible vodka with marionberries and pears and boysenberries and raspberries, and they use a pound of fruit to infuse 1 liter. And so it's very strong flavored of the fruit. And so I thought I would try to make it myself, but clearly I thought I had more than I did, so I'll run to the store and get that. So now we still have all of these berries, which is a lot. And now, see, I've got berries over here too. I think what we're gonna make is some lemon curd, or I keep saying lemon curd. We're gonna make raspberry curd using these berries. We got that project done. Curd next, which this recipe is right here. Before I get into this recipe, I'm actually gonna sit here and I'm gonna read the entire recipe all the way through at least once, maybe twice before we get started, because the steps are a little bit different than the lemon curd we made a couple months ago. The nice thing about doing a bunch of the same type of recipes all in once is you can reuse your dishes. So I can reuse my colander and some of those bowls because we're gonna remove all the seeds from these raspberries for our curd. So the first thing we need to do is take 5 cups of raspberries and get those into this pot. One, 3, 5. Now I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of fresh lemon juice. I squeezed this and froze it. I put it into this mason jar because I needed the container to make the freezer jam. Now I'm gonna add lemon zest. This is freeze-dried lemon zest from the day I froze the lemon juice, and we're gonna turn this on. So this is where we're gonna strain the seeds out. So we're gonna be able to use this again. And then in this bowl, I'm gonna put my butter. And we just need this to come up to a boil so that it crushes all the berries. So we're gonna be able to get the juice out a lot easier. And then while this is cooking, I wanna start flash freezing these berries. Now, because I washed them and they have some moisture to the outside, if I was to put these into a bag just like this, they would freeze all together. So I am going to transfer them very gently onto this cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper. And then later in the year, I can use these in smoothies. I can make different desserts with them. I can freeze dry them if I want to because they're already gonna be frozen, but I will have them ready for whatever I want to use them with. This is the first time I've ever been able to get a good supply of organic raspberries to put up from a local farm, which is awesome. I'm trying to keep them from breaking. Okay, I think this cookie sheet's full, so I'm gonna put this in the freezer. Once these are completely frozen in individual berries, then I'll put them into freezer bags, and then I can enjoy them however I want to. So I got 3 cookie sheets total for the freezer. So this I'm gonna go ahead and just put in the same bowl that I put the seeds in from earlier. And we'll give this to the chickens. And we're gonna use this sieve one more time, but I do want to scrape as much of this goodness off as possible. And I'm gonna go rinse this off. So I only need 1.5 cups of raspberry juice and lemon juice and obviously my berries were juicier than that, so I'm going to measure out the proper amount of juice from here. Maybe I'll quadruple this recipe. Okay, so I'm quadrupling this recipe. I don't want to waste this, so I'm going to add this to our infusion, and then I will probably put the rest vodka up to here. Now I'm going to add my sugar. Now I'm going to add 9 eggs. So now I'm going to get this back on the stove. I want to whisk these eggs together with our juice and sugar, and we're going to cook this until it starts to thicken. Now I'm going to add a little bit of tapioca starch. This is optional, the recipe states. So I'm quadrupling this recipe, and I'm going to put 1 recipe's worth of cornstarch in there, or tapioca starch. I think this is done. We've got a nice thickness to it. So I'm going to take this over to the butter. So here we have butter, the quadrupled amount, a bowl. And now I'm going to put my lemon curd through this sieve. In case I scrambled any of the eggs, I want to make sure that that doesn't end up in our final curd. This is why I wanted to run this through a sieve, because the little white pieces in here, those are pieces of egg that had scrambled, and I don't want that in my final curd. So I'm gonna go wash this off so I can scrape the outside of this sieve. That would just really mess the texture of the final curd if you left that in there. I mean, you technically could, it wouldn't, you know, hurt you or anything like that. It's just scrambled eggs. It's just a little off-putting texture-wise. All right, so now I've got my butter, and it's melted quite a bit because that curd was warm. Now I'm just going to stir this until all the butter is melted and this is nice and shiny. The butter is fully incorporated. It's still nice and thick, but this will thicken up a lot when it cools down. And we're going to give this a try. I can smell the butter as soon as I put the raspberry sauce over the butter. The butter a scent just wafted up, and it smells incredible. You can use curd just like you would jam on toast and biscuits and things. It's got a richer flavor because of the butter and eggs. You can use it as a filling in cake. I can taste the butter. I can taste the little bit of lemon, not too much lemon. The 2 main flavors I'm getting from this are raspberry and butter, which I think are 2 great flavors. I'm actually going to add 2 little pinches of salt to kind of cut through the sweetness just a little bit. It's not too sweet, but I just like salt in my sweet things. I'm going to taste that now. The way we've used the lemon curd that we made together is we've put it on Dutch babies, I put it on waffles, and I've put it on French toast. We've put it in cakes. Add that pinch of salt. Now, I'm gonna go check my front porch because I ordered more deli containers. They were supposed to be here yesterday at 5 o'clock. And then last night at around 7, it said that they weren't gonna be here till today at 10. So I'm hoping that they already arrived, because I would prefer to put my curd in these because they stack really well in my freezer. But if they're not on my front porch, then I'll put them in mason jars. No luck, they're not on my front porch. So I am going to go ahead and just put these in mason jars. So I just grabbed some rings and some lids. We're not canning this. This is definitely not a canning recipe. We're gonna freeze this. I just didn't have any deli containers, so we're using canning jars. That's why I left a good 1/2 inch headspace for the expansion of this in the freezer. So this is the perfect application to use a lid that you've already canned with. I figured I would come drop off these goodies to the girls. Come on, girls. Oh yeah, they're going for those seeds like crazy. That's awesome. I think it was 2 weeks ago that I came out here with you and I mowed down what now I know, you all let me know. This is plantain, which has a lot of medicinal purposes. I have not done any research on it yet, so I don't know what those medicinal purposes are, but I could harvest them and use them medicinally. And I could already see that I need to come out here and weed whack again. They are gonna so enjoy those raspberry seeds. We got everything done on the list. Now the freezer jam has to sit out on the counter overnight. It'll set up overnight and then I'll pop it in the freezer tomorrow. We got 4 pints of that. I believe we got 5 half pints of the raspberry curd, 2 pints of the raspberry curd. And when I was jarring that up, I was thinking that would be so good in the homemade yogurt I've been making lately. The richness of the butter in yogurt would just be so good. And what else? The raspberries, I checked on those before I brought this down to the chickens that are in the freezer. Those are about half frozen. They were so soft that I want them to be completely frozen before I bag them up. The freeze-dried raspberries are not gonna be done until tomorrow, and those brownies are still cooling. They need to be completely cooled and set before I can cut into them. So I will show you what all of that looks like as it is done. I am going to tidy up the kitchen and then I am going to make a bunch of marinated meats for the grill. Summered marinated meat recipes. And that is what I'm gonna get going on next while I wait for the raspberries to freeze and the brownies to completely cool. That looks incredible. So I've not eaten dinner yet, but I am gonna give this a try. Dinner is on the grill right now. Look at that. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have that bite with that piece of cheesecake and raspberry. Oh my goodness. That is most definitely a winter brownie recipe. I wouldn't cut them any bigger than that because that little square is rich and decadent and is gonna hit the spot. So here what we got, this is all we got in total. Our freezer jam, and these came in the mail about an hour ago. And I was considering putting our curd into my deli containers, but I like to wash them in the dishwasher before I use them. So I'm not gonna go through that effort. I'm just gonna throw all of this in the freezer. We've got our infusion going, our incredible cheesecake brownies, and oh, these are just jams that we made together last time. I need to put the name and date on them and get them in the pantry. We got 3 1-gallon things of frozen berries for whatever we want to use later in the year. That'll probably be enough frozen raspberries to last me an entire year. And we've got probably at least 1.5, if not 2 bags of freeze-dried berries in the freeze dryer. That's not gonna be done till tomorrow. Probably tomorrow evening because I put them in there fresh. If I had froze them first, it wouldn't have taken so long in the freeze dryer. but that's okay. Friend, I wanna thank you for taking time out of your day to spend time with me if you've been here before. And if you're new, please consider subscribing because we do all sorts of fun stuff like this. This is the first beginning, not the first, but it's the beginning of preservation season around here. At least where I live, harvest is just starting, and we do a lot of fun, big project days like this. And this is the first time I've ever done a big raspberry preservation day, and I had a ton of fun. And if you wanna watch more of my videos, between now and my next upload, I'll pop some videos there you can go enjoy. And don't forget to check the description box out because I will have links to Crystal's book that has this recipe in it and more down there that you can find. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. I'll pop some videos here you can go enjoy between now and my next upload. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.